Morning guys, welcome back. Been for a bit of a freshen up today, feeling a bit sharper. It's a glorious day today, sun shining, fish are doing well. After the PP treatment, they swimming around and seem happy as out now, so we'll spin around and give a quick look. So they seem to be doing fantastic. Water's cleared up tenfold. They're loving life now. Not seeing any flashing, flickering, anything like that. Seem to be loving it. So I'll just have to keep an eye on them and see what they like. But so far so good. Turn the shower back off for now until I can get that other pump sorted, because in order to get that working I have to shut all other returns off, obviously, because it's pumping higher than the other returns what are lower down. So if the other returns are left open, it just goes straight through those ones rather than pumping upwards to the shower. So yeah, they're doing well. I'm going to get on and do my tests now, my weekly water tests, see where my parameters are at. I'm pretty sure that they're going to be good now, so I'm going to get my test done and see where we are. So as you all guys remember from before, it was the nitrite that was causing the issue, so I'm going to do my nitrite test first, because that takes about 15 minutes to do. If there's any noise in background guys, because a few people have mentioned it to me, then it's not my sound that's acting up or anything like that. It's purely because pumps are running from my moving bed in here, and that's the noise you can hear. So if you can hear any funny noise in background, it's pumped from my moving bed, so there's not a lot I can do about it, I'm afraid. Right, so that's me 10ml filled up in the test tube. I'm just going to give this glass a wipe to get all fingerprints and that off it, because there will be fingerprints on it, because I've just been scoffing some dirty greasy chips. So lots of that. And then pressure's checker, add C1, straight in there, boom. Just wait for that to 0. That's it. And then we add one of his reagents to the test tube. So I'm hoping this is going to have gone down to what it was at. Last time I checked it, it was 0.26 last time, so I'm hoping to see a reduction in that. Certainly can't, well, you'd have thought it certainly can't be any higher, because they've not been fed out, so I'll just open it down both sides. I'm not as neat as you, Phil, with opening these. I've not got no scissors to hand, so I just rip it. And then what I do with these guys is, those of you that have got these Anna checkers, I don't know whether you've noticed sometimes, but when you've added the reagent into the tube, sometimes when if you're tipping it like that to mix it up, you'll notice that sometimes some on it gets stuck on bottom of that tube here. So what I've got, what I do is, I've got like a little stick what came with me. It's just a little plastic stick thing, I don't know what to call it, but all I do is put that in there and just mix it round with that. Just mix it round with that, just to get it off at bottom. This way you're not shaking it vigorously, so you're not creating any air bubbles. So I get it mixed around with that, put the lid back on, then just get a couple of backwards and forwards like that. And then wipe it, get a good wipe, get them dirty greasy finger marks off it, and then put it back in my tester, lid down, an old button for a bit, and that's it, timer's on. So now we've got to wait 15 minutes for that. So once that's done, I'll be back to you guys. Just while I'm waiting for that, guys, excuse me, I forgot to mention that I received another mug. I forgot to mention it in my last video. So Davey, thank you very much. Go and check his channel out. Thanks a lot, Davey. What I'm going to do as well, guys, while I'm waiting for that, is I want to make sure I've got no chlorine in my system. So I may as well do that while I'm waiting. It just takes a little while. These chlorine ones don't take as long, so I may as well do that while I'm waiting. Last thing I want is any chlorine in the system that's going to prevent the bacteria from growing properly. So, I mean, there wasn't any chlorine in the system before when I was having the issue with the water parameters, but if we just check it now, need a bit more in there. That'll do. It says in manual for these Anna checkers, well, particularly the chlorine one, I haven't looked at the nitrite one, but it says that they're accurate down to 0.03 parts per million. So even sometimes if you're getting a 0.03 reading, it's quite possible that you've actually got zero chlorine because you've got that 0.03 tolerance, but then again you've got the same on the other end of the scale. It could give you a 0.00 reading, but then you might still have traces of chlorine in it because of the accuracy tolerance of it. But I'd have thought most of the time if you're getting a reading a 0, then pretty much guaranteed that there's no chlorine there. To be quite honest with you anyway, I think if I were getting a reading of 0.03, I don't think I'd go chasing it, to be honest with you. And then that's going to count down from 2.5 minutes. So I'll see what that one comes in at. So once the chlorine, the nitrite one has got 5.5 minutes left, so the chlorine one will finish before that, so I'll come back to you when the chlorine one's finished. So these are just about to come in now, guys. Chlorine 0.02, probably not even worth worrying about. Let me know what you guys think. Would you be happy with 0.02 reading? Now the nitrite one's about to come in, guys. So previously I believe the reading was 81 parts per billion. 65 parts per billion. So I'm going to do my quick calculation on that now, and see what that equates to in parts per million. Right, so that then, guys, 65 parts per billion. I've done the calculation on it, and that equates to 0.21 parts per million. So, I mean, to be quite honest with you, it has come down, because before it was at 0.26, but I'm thinking that's more come down to due to probably the trickle out that's going on. So that's probably what's brought that down, because the PP has probably knocked the bacteria back in the moving bed, so maybe the bacteria in the filter isn't the cause for it coming down. Now at that level of nitrite, I'm not worried about it, because nitrite, its toxicity is dependent on the pH of your water. So my pH usually sits somewhere between 7.5 and 8, depending on what tester I'm using, really. And obviously it fluctuates a couple of points depending on time of day. But between the higher, above 7.5 you go, the more nitrite concentration is required for it to become toxic. So somewhere between, I think it's about a pH of 8, then for nitrite to be at a toxic level, it has to be at a concentration of, I think it's 10 parts per million. So that's 10. Now if you think that my nitrite is sat at 0.21, then it's, you know, it's negligible in that respect. So I'm not worried about it in any sense whatsoever there. I'm going to do the rest of my checks in a minute. I've got my ammonia check to do. I'll test my pH. I will test my KH as well. Yeah, and I'll go from there. So once I've done them, guys, I'll get my results logged down. I'm going to put them into my Koi Control app, because I've been putting them in that as well, so I can see the graphs on how my parameters have been fluctuating depending on what I've been doing with my water, and what I've been feeding and stuff like that. So I'm going to get them logged down on paper, because I always do that anyway as a backup. I'll get them into my Koi Control app, and then once I've done that, we'll dive into Koi Control and I'll show you them in there. I know there's been a couple other people that's shown the Koi Control app as well, but I will still show it you, because then I can show you how my parameters have been fluctuating on it too. I'll do a screen share on it if I can, and we'll go from there. So I'll catch back with you later, guys, once I've got the rest of my results. Right then, guys, so you'll have to ignore the two different test kits here. So for my ammonia and my pH, I've run out of the drops on the NT Labs test kit, so I've had to revert back to my API test kit for those tests. So my pH is at 8, which is fine. It's usually between 7.5 and 8. My ammonia is now 0, and my KH That's at 6. So there has been a bit of an increase in my KH due to me adding some bicarb. I think it was maybe last week or sometime during the week, I think it was. Yeah, I added a bit of bicarb just to buffer it up a bit and just put a bit more carbonates in the water just to try and encourage a bit more bacteria growth. So my KH is now at 6, and that's the reason for that. I think it had gone down to 4, but I upped it by a couple. So they're all good. So I'm going to get those into me folder now, and then I'm going to get them into me Chlorine Control app, and we'll have a look at the charts in there. Right then guys, so what we have here is the overview of the Chlorine Control app on the desktop version. So what we'll do is I'm logged into my account, so we'll start in the My Koi section. So if we go in here, you'll see that for each one of my koi I've taken a picture and loaded it into the Chlorine Control app. Just gives me a better understanding on which fish is which, and to be able to identify it and things like that, and you can take pictures as it grows. Let's, for example, we'll go into me Kohaku. So this is all your details once you click on one of your fish. So we've got picture. Now it asks you to put a name in for your fish. Now none of my fish have got names, so what I did for name is I just put Wagoi because it's a scaled fish, so I just put Wagoi to identify that it's a scaled fish. And obviously it's Kohaku. It's been in my pond since 26th of March, and paid $2.95 for it, and it was from the Sakai Fish Farm. So all the details of your koi that you can put into it. Its age, so it's an Nisai, 40 cm, and what happens is in Chlorine Control, when you put in the length of the fish, it makes an average calculation of the weight of that fish, so it helps you get a picture as to how much food you should be feeding and things like that. So let's just go back out of here and we'll go to, no, not that one, we'll go to my Showa. So if you look here again, Wagoi Showa, Sinisa Showa, paid 95 quid for it in the growing show. It was Tosai, taking note to this length. This is the length that it is at now, but it was at first measurement 17 cm, as you can see here. So also you can input growth history into your fish. So the last time I did that was on the 14th of this month. It measured 24 cm, and Chlorine Control calculated an average weight of 256 grams. So it's grew by 41%, and it's gained roughly an average of 181% since its first measurement. So its first measurement at 17 cm weighed an average of 91 grams. So now it weighs an average of 256, so it's an 181% increase in weight. So yeah, it's a really good app for doing things like this, to keeping track of your koi. So there's 15 koi in my pond, these are them all, and I can just use this to keep track of every single one. If we go back to the main screen, you go to is my pond. So this is the only pond I've got, so this is it. So just a little picture of my pond here, number of fish 15, volume 9,400 litres, depth 1.33 metres, one drain, one skimmer. So that's my pond section. And then water parameters. So as you can see here, these are all the water parameters that I've put into the Code Control app. Now originally I was just doing my water parameters on paper, but what I did is I took all of those details and put them into the Koi Control app. So as you can see, these are all the pond parameters for the pond. So the most recent one, which is this one, which is the one that I've just done. So as you can see here, my nitrite 0.21. I'm going to have to get an oxygen test kit. I'm not going to bother with a digital one because they're just too expensive. So I'm just going to get the dropper ones, I think, to measure the oxygen levels. But nitrate 15, temperature 24. I've never bothered with phosphate. pH 8, ammonia 0, KH 6, GH 7, CO2. Right then. So what the Koi Control app does for CO2 is it takes a direct measurement, or it calculates it via the pH value and the KH value. So if you look at this, it tells you information regarding the CO2. So the optimal range of CO2 is between 5 and 35 milligrams per litre, and it says the CO2 concentration in the water depends on both the pH value and the carbonate hardness. Thus, CO2 does not need to be measured and can be calculated automatically by Koi Control. If the pH value and the KH value are good, then this is also true for the CO2 concentration. Moving a lot of CO2 out of the water causes the pH value to increase. So the way that would happen is if you was to add a lot of air into your water, that would take a lot of CO2 out of the water, or strong water circulation. So Koi Control, the optimal range between 5 and 35 milligrams per litre, and it calculates it through the value of pH and your carbonate hardness. So what would happen is, say for example, my pH usually sits around about 7.5. It has gone up to 8 now because I increased the KH. But if this was to go back down to 7.5, you would see that the CO2 now has increased to 6, so it's within the optimal range. Okay, so it does a calculation based on your pH value and your carbonate hardness. So that's how that works. I'll just put that back to 8. Salt, I don't salt my pond. Amount fed. Right, so what I'm doing now that I've got me ammonium nitrite levels back down, so what I realise now is that those values spiked through my own mistakes basically. So when I turned my heater up to 24, I immediately started banging the food in, and that's where I went wrong, because I didn't do it gradually. I didn't give me filters enough time to catch up with the increased load of food that was going into the pond. So that was my mistake, and I accept that. So that's something I've learnt now, not to overdo it and to increase feed gradually. So now that me levels are back down, what I'm doing now is I'm starting to feed twice a day, and I'm going to do that for next week just to gradually build up my feed amount. So today I've already fed once. I fed 17 grams because my fish get 17 grams per feed. So what I've done is, because I'm going to be feeding them twice today, I've put in here the amount fed as 34 grams, because then that's 2 feeds. So that's why I've put that in there. Outside temp on average 15.5, and then down in this note section here, I've just made a little note that I'd done a chlorine test and it came in at 0.02 parts per million. So this is all, this is all very good, because you can add your notes in down here, and all of this information, what you put in here, all these values, it all gets put into a graph where you can monitor where things have spiked, where things have plateaued, and you can build an idea up as to what's going wrong with your water and things like that. So I like this section of it. So what I'll do now is, if I go into the statistics, and I'll click for ammonia, nitrate and nitrite, I'll also click amount fed, and I'll do it for last 3 months. So what you will see here is, like I said, as soon as I turn my heater up, in fact first we'll start with this bit. So round here, where are we? So this, from all this section here where the nitrite is up and down, all this section is when I was going through the new pond syndrome, and then it starts to drop off here. Look, it drops off, and it starts to level out around about, I don't know, mid-April or something like that, and it levels out. And then as soon as you get to May, which is here, this is where I started to up my temperature and increase my feed. So you'll see on the 1st of May, if we go up to feed as well, that's when I started feeding heavy. So I started feeding, I think it was 7 times a day, 120 grams. That's when we started to see levels rise again. So that's when I started to see my spikes. So I can see by looking at this chart that that's where I've gone wrong. Alright, so I've been feeding an heavy amount, and then that's when I've been getting my spikes. So as soon as I've stopped feeding, look, as soon as I've dropped off my feeding, it's showing us that my levels are coming back down. Okay, so it gives you a visual representation of what your water parameters are doing, rather than just having it written down on paper. And I think sometimes just having a visual can make it that much easier to understand what's going on in your water. So that's why I like this too. Also, if I go into my pH and my KH, we can see that as I've increased my KH by bicarb, you can see that's had a direct impact on my pH and rose that up too. So as my KH has risen up, so has my pH. So that gives you a visual representation too of what's happening when you're adding bicarb. So when your KH is going up, when you're adding bicarb, so is your pH, and that's what it does. Definitely if you add it in too quickly as well. So yeah, that's why I love this as well, because there's just so much information that you can put into it. Go back to the overview. We've got a salt calculator down here. Look, so pond volume. My pond's 9,400 litres. Current concentration is 0. If I wanted to have a desired concentration of, say, 0.3, you would see at the bottom here it tells us to get a concentration of 0.3 I would need to add just over 28 kilos of salt to get a concentration of 0.3. And then also, if I was to do, let's say, a 10% water change, to get it back to that desired concentration of 0.3, I've got to add 2.82 kilos to get back to that. Alright, so this is handy. This is only available in the full version of the app. So is the food calculator, and I believe the statistics part of it too is only available in the full version of the app. But even in you know, the light version, the free version, you still get, you know, it's still good because you still get your my koi section and your pond and your water parameters, so it's still very good even on the free version. If we go into the food calculator, again you've got 3 different desired growth settings, so you've got your low, your medium and your high, and your water temperatures. So if you were growing tosai, you wanted high growth, and you had, you know, a heated pond, for me 120 gram a day, because a lot of my fish are small tosai. Okay, so that'd be high growth, and I'm at 24 degrees, so 120 gram a day, and that recommended amount is calculated based on the average weights of the fish that you have added into my koi section. Okay, so the more information you add into this makes the app a lot better to use, because it can calculate things a lot more accurate. Alright guys, so that's just a quick overview of the koi control app. I know other people have done it too, probably a better job than me, to be fair, but yeah, I just wanted to show you that and show you how my, you know, water parameters show up in the app, particularly in the statistics on, you know, how things go and things like that. Like that's what it looks like over a year for ammonia, nitrate and nitrite. So yeah, you can, as you can see, you know, nitrate has been going up quite high, so we've definitely been in the end stages of the nitrogen cycle. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show you guys on that. Like I say, I know other people have done more in-depth reviews of the app, but it's definitely a very good app to take a look at and consider using, and I think I'm going to be definitely putting more time into this in the future, especially when I start getting more fish and things like that, and as my fish start growing, because then once they start growing I can start putting more information into the growth of my fish and see how much they've grown by, and, you know, and calculate as much more food as they need. So right, that's just a quick overview of that then guys, so I hope you enjoyed that bit. So I'll catch you back on the next section guys. See you later.